Let's get right into it. Number 15. Sharpening blades you use every day. Most people own a drawer full of dull knives and don't know it. They think the knife is bad. The knife isn't bad, it's neglected. A sharp blade is safer than a dull one, because a dull blade requires more force, and more force means more slipping, more accidents, more wasted effort on tasks that should take seconds. This isn't just about kitchen knives. Scissors, garden shears, pocket knives, even axe heads, all of them dull with use, and almost nobody knows how to bring them back. The skill itself is simple. A whetstone, a consistent angle, and patience. That's it. No special equipment, no gimmicks. But here's what makes this skill worth relearning specifically. It's disappearing not because it's hard, but because replacement is easier than maintenance. Dull knife? Buy a new one. Except that mindset costs money over a lifetime that a $5 stone could have saved. And when you're in a situation where replacement isn't an option, camping, a power outage, an emergency, knowing how to restore an edge instead of needing a new tool becomes the difference between capable and stuck. Number 14. Cooking without a recipe. Recipes are training wheels. They're useful when you're learning, but if you never take them off, you never actually learn to cook. You learn to follow instructions. There's a difference. Someone who understands why salt matters, how heat changes proteins, and what flavors pair together can walk into any kitchen with random ingredients and make something edible. Someone who only knows recipes needs the exact ingredients, the exact steps, and panics the moment something's missing. This skill isn't about becoming a chef. It's about food security in the most literal sense, knowing that if the grocery store is out of your usual items, or you're using up what's left in the fridge before it spoils, you're not helpless. You understand structure. A protein, a starch, a vegetable, a fat, a seasoning. That's the entire framework most meals are built on. Relearning this means fewer wasted groceries, fewer expensive takeout orders born from, I don't know what to make, and a kind of quiet confidence that most people lost the moment they started outsourcing every meal decision to an app or a printed card. Number 13. Backing up your digital life. Most people have never lost a phone with nothing backed up until they do, and suddenly years of photos, contacts, and documents vanish in a single moment. This isn't a technology lecture. It's a habit that used to be common sense and quietly disappeared as cloud services convinced everyone that backups happen automatically. Sometimes they do. Often they don't, especially for the specific documents that matter most: insurance papers, ID scans, important messages, financial records. The skill here isn't technical mastery. It's a simple, repeatable habit. Knowing what data you can't afford to lose and making sure at least one copy exists somewhere outside your primary device. A drive failure, theft, or a cracked phone screen shouldn't erase years of your life. Yet for most people, it would. This is a skill worth relearning specifically because the stakes have quietly gotten higher. We store more of our lives digitally than any generation before us, and fewer people know how to protect it than the generation that stored everything on paper in a drawer. Number 12. Basic home electrical fixes. There's a specific kind of helplessness that comes from standing in front of a breaker panel with no idea what any of it means. A light stops working, an outlet stops working, and the only option feels like calling someone and paying a service fee for a 5-minute fix. Most basic electrical issues in a home are not complicated. Tripped breakers, blown fuses, a loose connection, a dead outlet. These are diagnosable and fixable by anyone willing to learn 4 or 5 fundamentals. This isn't about rewiring your house. It's about knowing the difference between a problem that takes 5 minutes and $100 saved versus a problem that genuinely requires a professional. Right now, most people can't tell those two situations apart, so they treat every electrical issue as an emergency requiring outside help. That gap in knowledge costs money and time. Relearning this means understanding your own home instead of being a stranger inside it, knowing what's normal, what's not, and having enough confidence to flip a breaker instead of immediately reaching for the phone. Number 11. Understanding your own insurance policy. Most people sign insurance paperwork the way they click "I agree" on a website without reading it, trusting that it will simply work when needed. Then a claim gets denied, or covers far less than expected, and the shock isn't that insurance failed. It's that nobody ever explained what was actually promised in the first place. This is a skill, not a chore. It means knowing your deductible, your coverage limits, your exclusions, and the specific language that determines whether a situation is covered or not. Insurance companies aren't hiding this information, it's sitting right there in the policy. But policies are long, dense, and written to be skimmed rather than read, so almost nobody actually understands what they're paying for until the moment they desperately need it to work. Relearning this skill means reading your policy once, carefully, before anything goes wrong, not after. It's the difference between confidently knowing you're protected and discovering, in the worst possible moment, exactly how unprotected you actually were. Number 10. Writing a complaint that actually works. There's a right way and a wrong way to complain, and almost nobody was ever taught the right way. The wrong way is emotional, vague, and easy to ignore. An angry paragraph a company can brush aside without consequence. The right way is specific, documented, and structured in a way that makes ignoring it costly. This is a skill that used to matter more visibly: writing a formal letter, citing specific policies, keeping a paper trail. Somewhere along the way, people started venting on social media instead, hoping public embarrassment would do the work that a well-written complaint used to do directly. But formal, structured complaints still work often better and faster than public callouts, because they create a documented record a company has to respond to. Knowing how to state the issue, reference the relevant policy or law, and clearly state what resolution you're asking for turns a complaint from noise into leverage. This is a skill worth relearning because most disputes in life with companies, landlords, service providers are won by whoever documents better, not whoever's angrier. Number 9. Starting a fire without modern tools. This sounds like a survival show skill until you consider how often modern conveniences fail at the worst possible moment. A lighter that won't spark in the cold, matches that got wet, a stove that won't ignite during a power outage. Fire is one of the oldest human needs, and somewhere along the way, most people stopped understanding how to create it without a manufactured tool doing all the work. This isn't about wilderness survival specifically. It's about understanding the actual mechanics: friction, spark, fuel, oxygen well enough that a failed lighter doesn't mean a failed night. Camping trips, power outages, emergencies where heat or cooking ability suddenly matters, these situations don't wait for convenient tools to work. Relearning this means understanding fire as a process you control, not a button you press. It's one of the clearest examples on this list of a skill that feels irrelevant until the exact moment it becomes the only thing that matters. Number 8. Detecting deception through body language. Most people believe they're good at spotting a lie. Most people are wrong. Human beings are, on average, barely better than chance at detecting deception through instinct alone, because the cues everyone thinks matter, like avoiding eye contact, are actually unreliable. The real signals are subtler: inconsistencies between verbal and physical behavior, changes in baseline mannerisms under pressure, timing gaps between question and answer. This is a trainable skill, not a talent some people are simply born with. It matters far beyond dramatic interrogation scenarios. It applies to negotiating a used car purchase, sensing when a business partner isn't being straight, or noticing when someone's story doesn't quite add up before you commit to something based on it. This skill quietly eroded as most human interaction moved to text, where none of these physical cues even exist. Relearning it means paying attention in person again, genuinely reading people instead of just hearing them, and it's one of the few skills on this list that protects you financially, socially, and personally, all at once. Number 7. De-escalating a conflict in person. Somewhere between fewer face-to-face disagreements and more arguments happening through screens, an entire generation lost the ability to diffuse tension in the moment it's actually happening. Text conversations let you walk away, take time, craft the perfect response. In-person conflict doesn't offer that luxury. Tone, timing, and body language all matter in real time, and most people simply freeze, escalate, or panic when it counts. De-escalation isn't about being passive or avoiding confrontation. It's a specific set of techniques: lowering your voice instead of raising it, acknowledging the other person's point before responding, knowing when silence works better than a rebuttal. These are learnable, repeatable skills, not personality traits, and the stakes are higher than most people realize. A disagreement that gets de-escalated ends in a conversation. One that doesn't can end a relationship, a job, or worse. Relearning this means understanding that the goal in most conflicts isn't winning the argument, it's controlling the temperature of the room, and that's a skill almost nobody practices anymore. Number 6. Negotiating your salary or bill. Most people accept the first number they're given: a starting salary, a medical bill, a service fee, because negotiating feels confrontational, awkward, or pointless. It's none of those things when done correctly, and it's one of the highest value skills on this entire list, because a single successful negotiation can be worth more than every other skill here combined. Financially, the mechanics are simple. Know the market rate before you walk in, anchor with a specific number instead of a vague request, and understand that most prices, medical bills especially, are far more flexible than they appear. Companies build in room to negotiate. Most people just never ask. This isn't about being aggressive. It's about understanding that no is rarely the final answer. It's usually just the opening one. Relearning this skill means treating almost every quoted price as a starting point rather than a fixed fact, and that mindset shift alone has quietly saved some people tens of thousands of dollars over a lifetime that everyone else simply paid in full. Number 5. Managing cash when systems go down. Card declined. App won't load. Bank systems are down for maintenance at the worst possible time. Most people have zero backup plan for these moments, because digital payment has become so reliable that cash started to feel unnecessary until the one day it suddenly isn't. This isn't about distrust of technology, it's about redundancy. A power outage, a system failure, a natural disaster. These situations knock out digital payment systems regularly, and in those moments, physical cash becomes the only thing that still works. Most people don't carry any. Most people wouldn't know how much to carry, or where to keep it safely, or how to budget it if digital options disappeared for even a single day. Relearning this means treating cash as an emergency system, not an outdated one, keeping a reasonable amount accessible, understanding it as insurance against exactly the kind of disruption most people assume will never happen to them, right up until it does. Number 4. Basic first aid, CPR, and bleeding control. This is the skill on this list with the highest possible stakes, and also the one most people are the most confident they'd handle correctly, despite never having actually practiced it. CPR isn't complicated, but it's also not intuitive. The compression depth, the rhythm, the decision of when to start and when to stop, these are specific, trainable actions, not instincts that appear automatically in a crisis. Same with bleeding control, knowing where and how hard to apply pressure, recognizing when a wound needs more than a bandage. The uncomfortable truth is that most emergencies happen in the first few minutes before professional help arrives, and those minutes are entirely in the hands of whoever's already there. Relearning this isn't about becoming a paramedic. It's about closing the gap between assuming you'd know what to do and actually knowing what to do, because that gap only becomes visible in the exact moment it's too late to close it. A few hours of training now is the only thing that changes that outcome later. Number 3. Spotting a bad deal early. Every year, people lose money not to dramatic scams, but to deals that felt slightly too convenient, slightly too rushed, slightly too good, and they signed anyway, because the pressure to decide quickly overrode the instinct to slow down. This is a specific, learnable pattern recognition skill. Artificial urgency, today only, limited spots, is one of the oldest manipulation tactics in existence, and it still works because most people were never taught to recognize it as a tactic rather than a fact. Same with vague terms, unusually high pressure to commit immediately, and deals that avoid answering direct questions clearly. None of these require special expertise to spot. They require slowing down long enough to notice the pattern. Relearning this skill means treating your own hesitation as useful information instead of an obstacle to push through, because that hesitation is usually your brain correctly noticing something the pitch is designed to make you ignore. The people who lose the least money aren't the smartest. They're the ones who learn to pause. Number 2. Reading a contract before you sign. Almost nobody reads the entire contract. Not the phone plan, not the apartment lease, not the gym membership, not the loan agreement. Everyone scrolls to the signature line because contracts are long, dense, and designed, whether intentionally or not, to be skimmed rather than understood. And that's exactly where the expensive surprises live. Automatic renewal clauses, early termination penalties, arbitration requirements that quietly remove your right to sue, fee structures buried in paragraph 12. This is arguably the single most consequential skill on this entire list, because a contract is a legally binding agreement to terms most people never actually saw. Relearning this doesn't mean reading every word of every document for the rest of your life. It means knowing exactly which sections matter most: cancellation terms, fee schedules, renewal clauses, and scanning those specifically before signing anything. That's the entire skill. 5 extra minutes, applied at the right moment, is often the only thing standing between a fair deal and a very expensive mistake nobody meant to agree to. Number 1. Basic knot tying for everyday use. Most people can tie exactly one knot well, the shoelace knot they learned as a kid, and rely on it for everything, even situations where it's genuinely the wrong tool for the job. A proper knot isn't about camping or sailing. It's about securing a tarp in wind, tying down cargo on a roof rack so it doesn't shift at highway speed, hanging something heavy without it slipping loose overnight, or fixing a broken strap or zipper pull with cord instead of replacing the whole item. There are really only 4 or 5 knots that cover almost every practical situation a person encounters. A secure loop, a knot that tightens under load but releases easily, one that joins 2 ropes of different thickness, and one that won't slip no matter how much weight pulls on it. None of these take more than a few minutes to learn, yet almost nobody knows the difference between a knot that holds and one that just looks like it will. This gap becomes obvious at the worst possible moment when something heavy shifts, something valuable falls, or a quick fix needed to actually hold and didn't. Relearning this means never again trusting a knot you're not sure about with something that actually matters.